Hello everyone, how's it going? And welcome to my Wild Rift tier list for patch 5.0c. With the most recent patch notes, we saw a lot of changes to some of the champions, but also quite a few changes to items as well. The important one to note is the combination now of Trinity Force plus Black Cleaver now being a more viable option, which opens up a lot more builds for these bruisers and tanks, but also some changes to some champions. So that means that some champions have to move up and down the tier list, and I'll go through every single role as always, and you can have a look down in the timestamps in the description to skip to whatever role you want to. But before you do that, I just thought I'll let you all know that I am also running a giveaway on this video. Thanks to Riot, they've given me some codes to give to you all for random skin chests. All you have to do is like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below. Could be anything at all. You can let me know what champion you're really enjoying at the moment, what champion you think is really strong, or just your general opinions on the tier list. I always read through them, I always interact with them or reply to you if you have any questions at all. So yeah, just comment down below, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and you enter into the giveaway. And then what I'll do, I'll put a little reply to it, and I'll say to you, message me on Discord or message me anywhere else, and then I'll send you a code. It's as easy as that. But yeah, with that out of the way, let's get into the tier list. First up is the Baron lane. Not too much has actually changed with the Baron lane at all, really. There's a few things I want to mention though. S plus tier does have a new champion, Urgot. I think this champion is absolutely insane right now. I think Urgot is one of the best Baron lane champions to play. Not last patch, but the patch before that meant that Urgot got like a really huge buff. His movement speed got increased on the second ability. He got some nice base stats buffs and also some other buffs to some other abilities. And Urgot is a great combination of a tank, but also a bruiser at the same time, because you can deal a lot of damage and you could be a bruiser and you have quite a lot of crowd control, but you're also super tanky as well at the same time. If you look at the build as well, I've updated all my builds on the Wild Rift Fire website. Going items like Heartsteel and Titanic Hydra make you a tank, but you still build items like Black Cleaver for the damage, Sterex Gauge as well. This sort of build that you go with Urgot just makes him extremely powerful in general, and it actually gives him a lot more power now during the laning phase and during the fight. So I think he's definitely deserves to sit up in the S plus tier at the moment. But as for the other champions, not really too much else has changed. I think the only real other thing to note is that Jax does have the new combination. You can go for new combination if you want to. Instead of going Divine Sunderer plus the Black Cleaver, you can also now go Trinity Force plus the Black Cleaver if you want more carry potential. I think Divine Sunderer might have a little bit of a better time really if you're playing in the Baron lane, since it does more damage to champions that have more HP, which is a lot more better in the Baron lane. But if you're playing Jax jungle, you can probably go for the Trinity Force plus Black Cleaver combo. That could be a very strong combo to go. As for the other champions, not too much else has changed. I mean, these champions are still incredibly powerful. Fiora, Camille, Aatrox, and Renekton. Renekton for the early game power, Aatrox for the incredible crowd control and also carry potential, Camille for the team fighting, and Fiora for the split pushing. As for the S tier, I haven't actually, obviously Wukong's rework doesn't come out until the 21st of March, which is in 2 days time. I'm predicting that Wukong is going to be very powerful though, both in the Baron lane and also in the jungle. He's another champion as well that can build the Trinity Force plus Black Cleaver combo, which makes him super speedy and super annoying to deal with. And I think in general it's going to be an extremely powerful champion. We saw the buffs with the patch notes. I think he's going to be very strong. He's going to be very difficult to kill, but also he's going to do a lot of damage in general. Other champions, like I said, top lane's not really changed too much. Akali's still a very strong assassin in Baron lane that got a few buffs in some of the most recent patches with like armor and health and everything like that. So I think Akali's pretty good. Gwen's still really strong. Garen's still super easy to play. Yone, Set, Darius, Shen, Dr. Mundo, Sion. Jace also received a buff as well. I think this actually makes Jace Baron lane a lot more viable now. He gets more armor per level. He gets more health per level. Jace had a lot more easier time in the mid lane because of against the mage matchups. He has quite an easier time because he has a lot of power in the early game. Against these bruisers though, he was kind of struggling a little bit in terms of trading and trying to exchange really a little bit in the laning phase. But now with these buffs that he's come in with, I think Jason now a lot more powerful in the Baron lane. Not too sure if he's S plus tier worthy though. I think he still sits in the S tier for now. Maybe might have to do some testing with him. A tier, Kennen did receive a bit of a nerf, but I think with Kennen, it's a champion that Performed really well in China. I think the China win rate was like one of the highest with Kennen. The only thing is with Kennen is that you can cheese in the early game and you can do a lot of early game burst damage. But if you can't transition that into the late game with your ultimate, then it does become pretty difficult. But I think overall Kennen can be very, very good. Teemo, if you can get a little bit of poke damage down, if you can do a lot of damage early on, then Teemo's also pretty good. Vladimir, a lot better in the mid lane. He struggles against some matchups in the Baron lane. Yasuo is still pretty good if you want to play tank Yasuo Baron lane. Irelia, Riven, Malphite is just a worse tank. The same with Gragas as well. These two tanks are just a worse tank compared to like Ornn, Sion, Dr. Mundo, Shen, you know, any sort of tanks like that really. B tier, you have other champions as well. Tryndamere, I honestly think is better in the jungle, even though they're trying to make Tryndamere Baron lane a thing. I still don't think it's really a thing. Olaf's not really that strong in the Baron lane either. Olaf's kind of fallen off completely. Same with Pantheon as well. You just don't really get that same, you know, burst power and the same potential of like ganking or roam potential with ganking when playing him in the jungle. Volibear can work pretty decently in the Baron lane, but I think again he has some pretty hard matchups. Then C tier, we obviously have Kayle down there, who is very weak during the early game, needs to scale up. Same with Nasus as well, pretty weak during the early game, needs to scale up, and also Singed down there, which I don't think Singed is actually that powerful at the moment. So that's all the Baron lane. Again, not too many changes, just a few movements here and there. Jungle, I've put Talon in the S+ tier. Now, Talon did receive a bit of a nerf. I think that when the hotfix buff came in for Talon, obviously before I rated Talon like an A tier or just on the brink of S tier. But when the hotfix buff came in for Talon, that's when he started to shoot up to S+ tier, because his jungle clear speed got buffed so much. It's crazy. All his abilities got buffed. His passive got buffed as well. So in this patch, they have nerfed the passive damage to monsters in the jungle. But honestly, that extra bleed damage is not actually going to be that important. I still think Talon jungle is one of the best junglers out there at the moment. Kind of has that same sort of assassin style that I was talking about with how the meta is at the moment with junglers, you know, with the likes of Kha'Zix, Evelynn, Shadow Assassin Kayn, even Lee Sin as well with his burst damage, and also Talon. You know, these 5 champions are all crazy assassins that can one-shot pretty much anyone on the enemy team. And like I said, I think Talon jungle is one of the best at the moment, if not the best. Obviously with Lee Sin, he did receive a nerf as well. I think it was his ultimate damage and also his base health. But to be honest, his ultimate will still one-shot anyway. I think they nerfed it by like 10 or 20 damage, which doesn't really mean anything at all. Lee Sin's still going to one-shot you with his ultimate and with his full combo. So that doesn't really mean too much. And base health in the early game, again, doesn't really mean to anything as well. So Lee Sin still sits in the S+ tier. Hecarim is probably one of, if not the best champions that uses the Trinity Force plus Black Cleaver combo, because now you get the movement speed from Trinity Force and also Black Cleaver. It means that you have an insane amount of movement speed now with Hecarim, and you have an insane amount of carry potential as well. Before, you know, some people would like to go for kind of phase rush and go for Manamune and play for this more one-shot Hecarim, but I think this playstyle of Hecarim is so much better. You just play him as a bruiser, you play him as like this unkillable monster, which basically still going to do a lot of damage and still going to be speeding around you like an absolute mad horse. But yeah, I think this build is just incredible with Hecarim, and Hecarim just basically got even stronger than what he was before, which is kind of crazy, to be honest with you. S tier, again, pretty much the same, just champions that I like to split between the A tier, you know, champions that are above the A tier in terms of power, in terms of carry potential, and also in terms of just champions overall. Again, I think Wukong is going to be pretty strong in the jungle after his rework. Riven with her mobility is really good. Vi is another champion that uses Trinity Force plus Black Cleaver. Xin Zhao as well, another champion that can use that combo very well. Jarvan, I have a new build for Jarvan, which is like kind of a one-shot burst build with Jarvan, which I think is extremely powerful at the moment. The boots will probably be different. I probably have to change these boots to either Gluttonous Greaves or the Armor Pen boots. I'll have to change that afterwards. I have to make a note of that. Yone still really strong in the jungle. Gragas as well, after so many buffs, still really good. Aatrox, Ross Kayn, and then also Wukong. And then you go on down and like the A tier champions are like in the middle between bad and good. Like I think in the right scenarios, these A tier champions are very good, but also at the same time, they're not really that good. You know, they're kind of like in the middle. You know, champions like Shen, I think could be really good if you know how to use his ultimate. You can just AFK farm an ultimate to any lane possible. Gwen can still scale up and do incredibly well. Pantheon, as I mentioned before, with his roaming. Full AP Nautilus jungle, still really powerful. Morgana did get a bit of a nerf in the jungle in her clear speed, but I still think her clear speed is very powerful, and she can still do very well in team fights. Diana, Echo, Zed, you know, these assassins still really good. Nunu, if you want to play more of a tank, still really good. Volibear, also very good. Actually, I might even put Volibear up into S tier, because again, Volibear is another champion that can use Trinity Force Black Cleaver with the Rift Maker as well, and is going to be incredibly powerful with that combo. So maybe Volibear could move up. Olaf's still really still decent in the jungle, you know, probably one of the weaker ones in terms of the A tier, but still pretty decent. Darius with Phase Rush, pretty good. Fizz, Dr. Mundo, Fiddlesticks, Camille, and then Jace. I moved Jace down from S tier to A tier because I just don't think he's still that good in the jungle, unfortunately. B tier, kind of unique champions in a way. Well, not really unique champions. You just kind of have like the low elo dominant champions like Rammus and Amumu. In lower elos, these champions perform very well, but the high elo you go, the more difficult it becomes. Same with the likes of Trenderman, Shyvana as well. These are just two kind of AFK junglers that can farm up and just scale incredibly well. Irelia a bit more on the difficult side when playing her in the jungle. Same with Fiora. Lilia just doesn't really do too much at the moment. And then Graves is another champion. You might have seen my Graves video a few days ago. But I did try Graves. I do think Graves is decent. I just don't think he's really that good. I still don't think he has the same one shot and the same carry potential compared to, like, you know, the other assassins in like S tier, S plus tier. And to be honest, even champions like Vise and Zhao can still do a lot more burst damage than Graves. I still think Graves need a few more busts in my opinion. And then Warwick and Moss Yi in the C tier. I think these two champions are definitely the worst junglers right now in terms of what you're picking for. I mean, Master Yi does have the potential to carry, but I think it's pretty hard. Whereas Warwick is like, I honestly think that Warwick is probably the worst champion in the entire game right now. Yeah, the champion is not very good. That's pretty much it, to be fair. Mid lane S plus tier has not changed at all, really. Jace still stays in the S plus tier. Obviously, Jace got a buff, but a buff doesn't really do too much in the mid lane to Jace, unless you're against an AD champion in the mid lane, like a Talon or Lucian or someone like that, or even Yasuo Yone. Because the armor per level obviously doesn't do anything really against like the likes of Aurelion Sol, Vladimir, Kassadin, and Syndra, you know, the other strong champions. But still, Jace does incredibly well against these mages and against these late game mages because of his early game power. He can get an early game lead, he can do a lot of damage, and he still scales pretty well into the mid and late game. As for the other champions, Aurelion Sol still incredibly powerful with the scaling. Same with Vladimir and Kassadin. Syndra, even after the nerf, she is still incredibly powerful as well. They nerfed her cooldown on her second ability and her damage on her second ability, but again, I still think Syndra is very, very strong. It just has great zoning control and great CC potential and burst potential that she's still, you know, just incredibly powerful champion. Anyway, Talon, as I mentioned, I think Talon's a lot better in a jungle than in mid lane. I still think Talon mid lane still works pretty well, but you kind of have to play passive early on, try and use your roams to your advantage. Lucian mid, also still very good. Especially against all these early game mages. Again, Lucian's kind of same as Jace, where you have that early game power that makes him incredibly powerful. Kali mid and as an assassin is still good. Zoe's still good. Irelia again takes advantage of these late game mages that you can try and get an advantage early on. Vex and Ahri still two really good mages with Orianna as well. 3 really good scaling mages. And you still have the brothers Yone and Yasuo in the S tier as well. A tier are just a little bit weak champions. You know, I still think these champions, again, it's kind of the same as jungle, where these champions can still do very well, and I still recommend to pick them, but they're just not as good as the ones above. But in the right scenario, they can still be really good. You know, you think of champions like Lux mid lane could be really good. Katarina, if you're not against any crowd control, can be very, very good. Twisted Fate for the roams, again, pretty good. Zeds, Ziggs, you know, you think of all these champions and all of them can still do very well. You know, Galio with the crowd control, Akshan with the 1v1 potential with mid lane, Echo with the burst damage, even Swain as well can do very well in the mid lane. Kennen, obviously, with the nerf, still sits in A tier. I don't think Kennen ever deserved to be up in S tier, even in mid lane or even Baron lane, even though in China, Kennen was like the highest win rate. Again, I think it's one of them things where they just didn't know how to play against Kennen, because for some reason, a lot of like ADCs in China like to go ghost and not exhaust. But when you're against the Kennen, you just use exhaust on that Kennen. The Kennen just basically does no damage. Like, that's a huge counter to it. B tier are just champions that are just pretty unique in general. Kai'Sa mid, just not very good. I mean, Kai'Sa in general is just not very good at the moment, unfortunately. Corki, not that very good in the mid lane either. Pyke mid is kind of fallen off quite a bit. Annie and Seraphine, just two weaker mages in general. Same with Karma as well, just not very good. And then C tier, you got Morgana, mid lane, not really that good. You just sit there AFK and do nothing. Same with Brand as well. I don't think Brand is very good right now. Even though, again, this is kind of the same thing where Brand is now one of the highest win rates over in China. I think it's like the 3rd or 4th highest win rate in mid lane in China right now. I don't know if it's because people just don't know how to play against Brand, or I don't know, but I really never see a Brand do well, to be fair, like ever. Again, it's just might be a thing where it's like Europe compared to China, but that's just me. And then K obviously sitting down in the C tier as well. ADC, not too much has changed. I've just moved one more champion up into the S plus tier, and that's Varus. The reason being is I think just Varus is super flexible in general. I think Varus has so many different build paths, so many different item combinations, rune combinations that you can go, and he fits multiple play styles. You know, you want to play Pug Varus with Summon Aerie, you could do that. You want to play AP Varus, you can do that. Heck, if you want to even play Crypt Varus, that can probably even work now with the Stormrazor buff. But I think in general, just Varus has so many different rune choices and item choices that suits multiple different playstyles. And he does a lot of burst damage as well at the same time. Obviously, Caitlyn with the Stormrazor buff. Caitlyn with Stormrazor plus Magnetic Blaster is one of the strongest combos, I think, in the game right now. So Caitlyn with her range is still very powerful. Lucian, I still think, is the best ADC right now by far. I think his burst damage and everything else with the likes of Duskblade is really, really good. I still need to try Stormrazor with Lucian. I'm not too sure if it's very good or not. I still need to try it. If you do want to see me play Lucian, then I'll probably be streaming by the time this video goes out. So you can watch my stream and you can see how I play Lucian. S tier, just really good AD carries in general. Tristana, late game scaling, really, really good. Ezreal, super safe AD carry that just does a lot of poke damage. Zeri, again, another champion that's pretty flexible, like Varus. You can build her in many different ways and still be very strong. Just a bit more on the difficult side in terms of a carry. Severe, really good in team fights, really good with her ultimate and her movement speed, and also incredible late wave clear. Xayah with her self peel with her ultimate, very powerful. Samira, again, I think is one of the best AD carries right now as well because of her carry potential and also her combos that she can do. A tier are kind of more champions that are either more difficult to play or more reliant on someone else, you know, like a Jinx and Vayne. I feel like you really need a good enchanter support, like someone that plays Lulu or Yuumi or Soraka or anyone like that for these champions to even perform very well. Again, as I mentioned before, the problem is with Kai'Sa right now is that she just doesn't have... She just struggles a lot during laning phase. I mean, that's the big thing. And even her scaling is like kind of off now as well, because there's not really a safe bet in terms of, you know, her being able to scale and carry, you know, relatively well during the late game. I think if you think of like the early game, for example, like Lucian, Caitlyn, and Varus just destroy Kai'Sa in laning phase and just kind of destroy, like, delay her power spike in a way. But I still think if you scale with Kai'Sa, she can still perform pretty well. But yeah, I think A tier is a pretty safe spot to put Kai'Sa. It's like, against some matchups she's good, but against some matchups she's pretty bad. Draven, obviously a bit more of a difficult champion to play, but has a lot of early game power. I can allow him to carry. Sorry. Same with Miss Fortune as well. Same thing, pretty difficult to play, but you can still carry early on if you really need to. Jhin is just not that good at the moment, unfortunately. Jhin's in a kind of a weird spot. Ashe, I think, is decent. I think there's like different builds that you can go with Ashe. I mean, I want to test out a few builds with Ashe to see what she's like at the moment in the current meta, especially with the Berserker Greaves changes. Might benefit Ashe quite a bit. Neela, pretty difficult to play in dual lane. Again, it's kind of the same thing when you're reliant on an enchanter support to keep her alive. Corki just doesn't really do anything on Twitch as well. I need to practice a new build on Twitch, which is like Blade of the Rune King on hit Twitch. Kind of same with Vayne as a way, but on Twitch. I want to test it out and kind of see what it's like in a way. And then with support, not really too much has changed again with support. I've moved one champion up into the S plus tier, which this time is Nautilus. Nautilus has been buffed now for the past, I think, 3 patches in a row. I could be wrong. Maybe it's like 3 out of the last 4 patches, but he got buffed again in most recent patch, making him even tankier, even stronger. And I think in terms of a tank support, he is the best tank of them all. And that's why I've put him in S plus tier, because I was like, okay, I need the best enchanter, some of the best carry support, and also the best tank support in the S plus tier. You know, you think of enchanter, Soraka is one of the best, if not the best enchanter right now. In terms of carry support, Pyke and Lux are 2 of the best. And the best tank support is by far Nautilus. I think Nautilus just destroys anyone else really in terms of the tank support. So I think Nautilus is incredibly powerful and probably one of the supports that I would definitely recommend you to play in this patch. In terms of other tank supports, Thresh, Leona, Rakan, all these champions are pretty okay. Braum, I've moved up into the S tier. Again, I did a video on Braum a few days ago, which I think the Braum is in a pretty nice spot now because of all the buffs that he received, which was quite nice. In terms of the other tank supports, they all still perform pretty well. I mean, Rakan, I say is a tank support, but you can build him as like kind of hybrid between one of the two, you know, Imperial Mandate, Zeke's Convergence, Crown, Rabadon. You can build him like a flex between the two, depending on what you want to go for. Again, it depends on playstyle. Other enchant supports that are very powerful. Soda is very strong at the moment. Super easy to play, super easy to scale and do incredibly well with. Karma, again, with her poke in the dual lane is incredibly good. And then you have more of the pure enchant supports like Lulu, Yuumi, and Janna. Lulu, I kind of lowballed, I guess, a little bit. I thought after her rework, she was not going to be as powerful, but she's still pretty strong, you know, even though her passive is on a longer cooldown now. I think the problem with Yuumi is just her healing in general that she gives is very powerful, but they're just not nerfing her healing at all. They keep nerfing her passive, they keep nerfing her second ability, her ultimate, and her first ability, but they never touch her healing. So her healing is the exact same, and that's why she's still really, really strong, because the healing that she gives to her allies is just way too good, especially on these auto attack carries that auto attack a lot during the fight. So that's why Yuumi still sits in the S tier, and I've moved her back up into the S tier. Janna's still really good as well as a peeling support and has really good playmaking potential in general. A tier, again, champions that can perform well, but obviously have downsides at the same time. Two supports I've moved up though is Swain and Seraphine. I will be having a video soon on Seraphine where I have kind of a new build for her, where you can max your second ability and really make full use out of the buff that Seraphine did receive. So I think that's going to be pretty good. Swain, I do want to try again as well. I think with the build where you go with Frozen Heart, that's the mid lane build. The build you go with Frozen Heart with Rylai's, I think this could be a really, really powerful combo, because with Swain, you're always going to be close to enemy champions. You're always going to deal magic damage. So you're always going to chill them, making them, you know, making it really difficult for them to escape. Obviously, with the Rylai slow on top of that. Other tank supports that can still do okay, you know, Alistar, Ornn, Gragas, and Galio. I think these are pretty unique, especially Gragas, Ornn, and Galio. These are pretty unique supports, but I think these are supports that are still very strong. Alistar, I just don't think is as good as the other supports right now, the other tank supports. Senna's pretty good as a carry support, but it's a bit of a hit and miss. Nami is only really good with Lucian. Other than that, she's not really that good. Zyra is okay, not too bad. Then you have B tier, which is Ashe, Set, and Blitzcrank. Ashe is just fallen out in terms of support. I don't even know if I should have a support Ashe build anymore. I think Ashe is just completely fallen out of support meta, and I don't think she's good anymore at all. And then Set and Blitzcrank. And then lastly in the C tier, we have Morgana, which even though they buffed Morgana and they buffed her Black Shield, she's still not good as support. I definitely still don't recommend to build her as a support. But yeah, that's it. Like I said, patch 5.0c. I've updated my website. All the builds are now updated. You can go and check it out. Link will be down in the description. But yeah, all the tier lists and everything is all updated. And yeah, we are looking in a pretty good spot overall. This might be the last patch before 5.1 as well. Another thing to note is that Kindred is also coming out next week. So I will add Kindred to the tier list once they get released. And also with the Wukong update, I'll test Wukong and I'll see how Wukong feels as well. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this tier list. As I mentioned, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below to enter into the giveaway. And until next time, I'll see you all in the next wild video. Peace.